to Privileges and Elections. This is the full committee, and we're going to start off. We do have just one housekeeping measure. Delegate Simon has asked that we pass by for the day House Bill 972. So if I could just get a motion.
So moved.
For me? Oh, sorry. Let's take attendance. I apologize.
Delegate Waxman.
Present. Waxman present.
Delegate Green. All right. Thank you. Okay. Delegate Simon has asked that House Bill 972 go by for the day. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
All right. We have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right. That's going to be passed by for the day. Okay, I see that Delegate Converse Fowler has joined us. Can we let that reflect that she is present? All right, moving on, we're going to start with the agenda. I see that Delegate Ware is with us, and we'll start with House Bill 15. Good morning, Delegate Ware.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you for that. And I have two bills, and I will start with House Bill 15. And there are some line amendments, and I would ask your Legislative Services staff if she could read those and briefly indicate. There have been a lot of people interested in this and wanting to see things altered a little bit.
And Madam Chair, for the committee, these line amendments should be posted with HB 15 on LIS and IHOD. On line 14, after requests, we'll insert for records of which they are custodians that are. And then on line 18, after 24.2-676, period, we'll enter a new sentence. No deferment of response shall extend past the 15th day following the certification of the election.
Thank you, Delegate Ware. Did you want to explain your amendment before we adopt them?
I actually may look to the Legislative Services to say how that alters the bill.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Delegate Ware, so the second line amendment I think is the bigger change here. It just makes it clear that there is a deadline for the registrars and electoral board members to respond to the FOIA request after the deferment period has ended.
Do I have a motion from the committee to adopt the amendments?
So moved. Second.
Okay.
All set.
Delegate Ware.
This bill comes to you at the request of one of my four counties, but three of the four explicitly made this request in some form or another. What's happened is you have an increasing number of FOIA requests that have come to registrars for reasons that I think are not a big surprise to any of us. And that increasing workload of simply answering increasingly heavy FOIA requests, particularly during the busiest time of the year for registrars, has created a huge burden on many of them, particularly, as I would say, in the rural districts. Because in many instances, a small rural registrar's office might have 2 or 3 employees, and the recent rules changes have been dramatic. They and the election day workers labor to make elections operations smooth, but when they're doing these other administrative tasks as well, it makes for a very long day at the least. We have had breathtaking legislative and administrative changes mandated in 2020 and since, and there have been proliferating concerns among voters about the administration of elections. These concerned citizens have understandably used the means at their disposal to find answers. FOIA requests, many sweeping in their commands, are filed at the busiest season of the year for registrars. I'm going to just briefly read a couple of these. I suspect this committee will be very familiar with the kinds of things that we're talking about, but just as examples that I got from a couple of the registrars in the district that I represent. Here's one. As a lifetime resident of the Commonwealth, I am requesting an opportunity to obtain public records as follows. A copy of the event log report for each tabulator used in the 2020 general election for the dates October 1st to February 1st. I'm requesting a copy of the configuration report for each machine that was used tabulating votes during the 2020 election for the dates October 1st to February 1st. Number 3, I'm requesting a copy of the November 3rd, 2021 ballot status accounting report to reflect the settings for each tabulator at the start of the 2020 general election. Number 4, I'm requesting the zero totals report for each day which were open during the 2020 general election on each tabulator. To provide clarity, these reports as described are as follows. Ballot status accounting report, zero totals report, event log report, configuration report. If there are any fees in searching for or copying for these records, here comes the line that comes with almost every one of these. I would also like to request a waiver of all fees in that disclosure of the requested information, since it is in the public interest and will contribute significantly to the public's understanding. I can give you a number, but I think you get the point. I think you understand the kind of sweeping requests that are being asked of registrars in this period leading up to the election day. And so what my bill would do is allow for them to have a respite for that period of time listed in the bill, after which they would be required. It does not do away with FOIA. It simply gives that period of time a little bit of a rest to the hardworking registrars that make sure that elections operate like they should. Madam Chair, that is the bill.
Right. I see that we have folks that are in person and also signed up to speak. Is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of the bill? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in opposition of the bill? All right. Well, we'll start. If the clerk could bring in the people that are online virtually.
Yes, Madam Chair. We've got one person to speak to this bill remotely.
Okay.
It's Miss Megan Ryan.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Megan Ryan. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Coalition for Open Government. And first of all, I want to thank the patron for wading through the many back and forth messages between me and the Goochland registrar who brought this bill to our attention. VCOG is definitely sympathetic to the plight of the registrars. They're trying to get their statutory duty to run elections. But we are concerned about the breadth of this bill as it stands right now. Two main points is that in this current format, the bill does not distinguish between what types of records might be at issue. For instance, this would cover ordinary government administration records like procurement records or employee reimbursements or statutorily mandated reports. And so I've been talking with the Goochland registrar about trying to figure out a way to segregate records that would be the ordinary administration of government records from not getting swept up in this particular proposal. The other concern is just the sheer number of days that this would involve. The first day of early voting to the 10th day after certification, that ends up being about 55 days. That's 55 days that no one, including reporters trying to do, reporting and doing their jobs, cannot get records that will be deferred until after the election. And that's not just for the general election. That would also be for primaries and for special elections and all that. So, if you added all those up, the potential is for nearly, a third of the year unable to get any records from the registrars in a timely fashion. And so, I understand we just still haven't gotten to where we agree. And so at this point, we have to oppose it.
Ms. Ryan, thank you. I appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the audience or out there virtually that wishes to speak in opposition or in support? Okay, members of the committee, do we have
Chair, if
questions?
I could just say one thing.
Delegate Ware.
I have worked as a reporter for a number of years, and the question about reporters getting information, while they may not have access to FOIA, my experience is that registrars are responsive to reporters. That obviously, different registrars in different parts of the state, there may be different experiences, but for mine, in the times that I've made requests as a reporter, I have found them generally responsive.
Do we have questions from committee members? Delegate Reed.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Ware, I really do appreciate, and I want you to know that I really do very much respect, working with you and everything. And I really like the long list that you read off, but it seems to me that the concerns that you raised all appear to be issues that have been perpetuated by this ongoing national narrative about there being election fraud. And wouldn't you kind of say to your own registrar that this is a problem of your own making? Meaning, the Republican Party?
Well, you could pose it in that term. You could also say that with the sheer volume of changes that have occurred, it's not surprising that ordinary citizens would be concerned about the nature of administration. There are probably other factors involved, but when you look at the number of changes we've made in the last 2 years, some of them without statutory backing, but administrative only, it's not surprising to me that there are a fair number who are concerned.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Williams.
Delegate Ware, it wasn't constituents of the Republican Party that brought this bill forward for aid or help. It was local registrars, correct?
That is correct.
Delegate Sickles.
Just a parliamentary inquiry. I don't think we normally have bills in this committee in the FOIA section of the code. Normally, that's handled in its own subcommittee in general laws. Could I ask the council if that's correct?
Madam Chair, Delegate Sickles, that is typical. However, in the FOIA provisions, there is specific language that says that the provisions of 24.2 related to FOIA control, so it was more appropriate to make the amendment in 24.2.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Follow-up question.
Delegate
Madam Chair.
Sickles.
Delegate Ware, are all the Registrar Association support this bill? Is this wide support, or is this our good friend from Goochland who comes here a lot, and I'm sure he's watching, good fellow, we all know. Yeah. Is it just him, or is it have they endorsed it from the Registrars Association?
That's a fair question. When it came to me, it did come to me initially from Goochland, but I have heard from a number of registrars subsequent to that. 2 of the 3 other registrars in the district I represent, and there are others that we've gotten emails from. I may have them in my packet and couldn't dig them out. So while it did come initially from one, and that they may have a larger request group than others, many of the registrars across the Commonwealth have said they have similar concerns.
So, Madam Chair, that's a no.
I'm sorry?
That's a no. That's my question. They didn't take an official position on the bill.
I'm not aware one way or the other that they took a position.
Okay.
And I don't know, I would assume somebody representing them might be here and could speak for the organization, but.
That would be great.
Delegate O'Quinn.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for council, but I know that obviously this I think is an issue. I've heard from registrars as well who've had large volumes of these sort of complicated and time-consuming requests. So my question is, I don't know what the proper way to do this would be, if it would be a letter or if it's something more formal, but if we could have the FOIA council maybe take a look at this and see what they think and maybe come back with some suggestions on maybe how we could get there to help resolve this issue.
Does the committee understand what Delegate O'Quinn is suggesting?
Madam Chair?
Madam Chairman, so I guess my question for council would be, would that need to be a formal motion to refer this to the FOIA council, or is that something that Chairwoman Ranson could do by a letter?
Delegate O'Quinn, I hate to punt, but I think the clerk might know the rules of procedure
Okay.
with motions and stuff. Thanks.
To my understanding, we would not be able to refer this to anywhere other than another legislative committee. I think if you wanted the input of that council, the best course of action would probably be to pass it by for the day while we got input from that council, if you wanted to get an outside opinion, and they're not here.
Okay. Madam Chairman,
Madam-
I would move that we pass the bill by for the day, and that you work in conjunction with Delegate Ware to send a letter detailing the issues of the bill over to the FOIA council for them to review.
Second.
We have a motion that's been properly seconded to pass by for the day so that we can work with the FOIA council. All those in favor of that motion will please vote or respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Should I stay for the second bill, or shall I?
Go ahead and take up House Bill 76 while you're here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one also comes in relation to the absentee early voting process, absentee process. This one came from Fluvanna County, not from Goochland initially, but again, has been seconded by several of the counties that I represent, and I think it's fair to say that many of the registrars would be simpatico with this simple request that requires the General Assembly to establish in its general appropriations a reimbursement plan to counties and cities fully and annually for the cost of conducting absentee voting. Fluvanna estimated, and this was an estimate, that it was $100,000, which in larger jurisdictions I'm sure is not very significant, but for a small rural county, that's serious money when you don't anticipate it. Powhatan County, my own county, said it was $56,000 in their estimate. Just to give you two examples, localities bear the cost of this, and it's in effect an unfunded mandate when we do this kind of thing. So I think if we're going to do it, and we have made the decision to do this, we need to fund it. It's a matter of simple equity and propriety. So I would ask you to support House Bill 76.
All right, is there anyone in the audience here that would like to speak in support of the bill?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Katie Boyle with the Virginia Association of Counties. We support the bill. Really want to thank Delegate Ware for taking this on. We are very interested in a more robust state and local partnership on elections administration. Would very much like to work with this committee and your partners in House Appropriations on resources for election administration. We think absentee voting would be a really great place to start, and appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? Anyone in opposition to this bill? Okay. We're going to go, if we have folks that are here signed up virtually to testify in support.
Yes, Madam Chair. We have someone in our virtual room in support, Ms. Victoria Nichols.
Okay, and I just want to remind the folks that are signed up virtually that we really have to limit it to about 60 seconds on both sides.
Thank you. I'm Vic Nichols. I'm in support of this bill. Basically, in our case, Chesapeake is a large area, but unfunded mandates have a way of rolling all together. And while you might have a small part for this one, it all adds up. We're at the point now where we have actually Chesapeake has submitted a bill to get the 6% that they're supposed to save every year in their lockbox. Well, when you sit here and go, we can't do that anymore, we're looking for all kinds of ways to save money, and this will be it. So we hope that you would approve the bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have members of the committee with questions for Delegate Ware on House Bill 76?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I pushed my request to speak button.
Delegate Sickles.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair. Just can't get rid of the old ways. For the new members, almost everything we do in this committee, in these code sections, are an unfunded mandate. We don't really support localities in doing this. During the COVID pandemic, we did send money down to have these elections carried out safely, and that money was well spent. And this would be a precedent, I think, or to do this. And I support the concept because I don't like unfunded mandates. So if we do approve this, we need to send it to appropriations. And so isn't that correct, Madam Chair?
Are you asking the patron a question?
Wouldn't we have, well, sure, I'll ask him. I was asking you, but Delegate Ware, wouldn't we have to send this to appropriations or?
I don't think you'd have to. This committee has its own power and authority.
Do you have a
Mr.
motion?
Chairman, yeah. Do you know Chris Jones?
Delegate Sickles.
I have a dim memory, yes.
Do you have a question for the patron?
I just asked a question.
Okay, but do you have a motion that you'd like to make on the bill?
Okay, I move we report the bill and refer to appropriations.
Second.
We have a motion that has been properly seconded. Is there any more discussion?
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I did actually have my button pushed. I had a question that I wanted to ask that it's in reference to Delegate Sickles.
Well, are you debating the motion, or are you asking more questions?
No, I had my button pressed beforehand, and I wanted to ask a question of the patron.
It's too late.
It's
You can speak
it's
to
too
the
late.
motion.
You can speak to what's going on, but are you speaking to the motion?
A parliamentary question, Madam Chair. Is the request to speak buttons working?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you.
Are you speaking to the motion? No. Okay. All right. It's been properly seconded that we are going to send this to appropriations. Everyone wishing to vote?
Delegate Fowler?
Converse Fowler, yes. Aye.
Delegate Waxman?
Background. Yes.
Every city, town, Commonwealth has a charter.
Delegate Williams, do you wish to vote?
Sorry, I thought I pressed it.
Okay. All right. This has reported 21 to 0. Thank you, Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Okay. I have received notification from Delegate Ferris that he wishes that we gently lay bill House Bill 48 on the table. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
All of those in favor of laying bill House Bill 48 on the table, please. We've received a motion that has been properly seconded. That is a recorded vote. That's okay.
Delegate Converse Fowler?
Aye.
And Delegate Waxman?
Aye.
Delegate Davis. see you in the audience. We have House Bill 129.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, Committee, House Bill 129 allows a local party option to have ranked choice voting when having a party primary in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Up until recently, Madam Chair, we all know that parties, for their choice for a candidate, had a couple of options. They had a convention, other party-run options, or a state-run primary. Recently, through legislation that had passed, a convention, which typically includes ranked choice voting, probably will no longer be an option because of some requirements placed for our active duty military, which means mostly we will be doing state-run primaries. What this allows is, at the discretion of the party can request that their primary, state-run primary, be held with ranked choice voting. This does a couple of things. First off, if we believe that you should always be a majority, not just a plurality, that decides the nominee of a party, this ensures that happens. A lot of us talk about civility. And as we all know, if you only need a plurality, those contests get a little bit more heated. But when you need to be someone's second or third choice, there tends to be a little bit more civility in politics. And I think we all believe that bringing civility back to politics would be a good thing. It isn't a mandate. This doesn't say that all future primaries have to be ranked choice. It's just another arrow in the quiver for our local parties. And just like our local parties do today through their state committees, they can choose whether they want a primary with ranked choice or without ranked choice. And the big issue, kind of going forward is we have allowed this already with local governments. There's a local option already for nonpartisan elections to be ranked choice. This just gives the same option to partisan primaries, but does not impact any general elections. Madam Chair, thank you so much.
Are there members in the audience that wish to speak in support of the bill?
All the members are up here.
Yes, there are.
In the audience in public? Okay. Are there members in the audience that wish to speak in opposition of the bill? Okay, we're going to start bringing in folks that are here virtually.
Madam Chair, your first speaker is Ms. Jane Newell with the League of Women Voters.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. The League of Women Voters' mission is empowering voters and defending democracy. The League of Virginia supports ranked choice voting as a means of empowering voters. We support the expansion of local use of ranked choice voting in HB 603. We expect that use in primaries is also a means of empowering voters. However, a delayed implementation for use in the statewide primary is recommended in order to allow time to educate election staff, volunteers, and voters throughout the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see that we have Mike Cantwell. Is he in the room?
No, Madam Chair.
We have Bethany Haddett, Charlie Jones, okay, Vic Nichols,
Good morning. Thank you. On this bill, I'm definitely for this bill and hope you would be also. We were able to take part in the ranked choice voting and with the Republican Party last year. And I will say this, it definitely made a huge, huge difference in who we felt actually got chosen. Because people, whether they even chose them first or second or even third, they felt invested in the candidate and in what the candidate had to offer. So I will, have to say that when it comes to the actual voter feeling like they're involved in this, it's not a winner take all. This is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. James Nix.
Madam Chair, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I am representing the Virginia Electoral Board Association this morning. VEBA regards the adoption of ranked choice voting as purely a policy issue that's the purview of the elected officials. However, there is an implementation issue we are closely following, which is the need for certified tabulation software to count the ballots in ranked choice elections. We've learned that ES&S, one of the major suppliers of voting machines to Virginia localities, has developed software that can run these elections, but that software has not been certified for use in Virginia elections. Other companies are also working on this challenge, but the Department of Elections will need to establish standards and certification protocols for such software before ranked choice voting can be widely adopted for elections in Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have, I see Delegate Head.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Question for, I'm not sure whether for the patron or one of the folks in the audience, but do we have any idea what the cost what would be, and we don't have anything coming up for a little while. I mean, do we if we went ahead and adopted this, would there not be sufficient time between now and our next statewide election to take care of that?
Madam Chair, Delegate, thank you for the question. There's a couple of things in play. One, you're right, there is plenty of time. Secondly, through phone calls, we understand that all localities but one in the Commonwealth already have machines that can handle this scenario, that can handle the ranked choice voting scenario. The tabulation software is nothing new. Many states do this. And because of what was passed already as an option for localities to have ranked choice voting, this is already something that has to be met by localities because of a prior law. So not only do we have time to do this, but they already have to undergo this for a bill that was already prior passed to get it done. Delegate Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Delegate Davis, a question for the patron. I'm sorry, ma'am. Delegate Davis, I just wanted to follow on to Delegate Head's question. So you're saying that right now that there is both the hardware and the software in place, and so despite the earlier discussion that we just had about unfunded mandates for absentee balloting, you're saying definitively that this would not be an unfunded mandate on the registrars and local election boards?
So we have a gentle lady behind me from VACO, and we're conferring that all localities already have the machines except for one locality. But this does not place an undue burden beyond what is already on them, remembering that we already have the local option in place for ranked choice voting at the local level. This uses the same equipment if we were to run this for a party primary. So that is already in place. Additionally, as down in Section D on line 35, we've already allowed, as we did when it came to local elections, the state board shall promulgate the regulations for efficient administration, and that's what we're giving time for them to do per Delegate Head's comment.
Delegate Converse Fowler, I see that you have your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yes, Madam Chair. I have a question for the patron. Go ahead. Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering how this would affect the next elections in the General Assembly. It was, specifically District 98, which I think the patron and I and another delegate are also all in the same. Would that have an effect on that next race in 2023?
Madam Chair, I would say that it's up to the local party to decide. It would be an option that can be chosen, just as today the party can choose a mass meeting, they can choose a firehouse primary, which are both party run, or they can choose a state run primary. And now they would have another option, a state run primary with ranked choice voting, not for a general election. So should the Delegate Fowler, myself, and Delegate Knight all run in a general, that would not impact this at all. It would just be in a party option only for the primary, ma'am.
Delegate Lefwich.
So, Delegate Davis, just wanted to get some clarification. In your presentation of the bill, you indicated that with ranked choice voting, the candidate with a majority would wind up prevailing.
Yes, sir.
And I've questioned that. I think that in ranked choice voting, there's a possibility that somebody with the plurality of the votes could wind up on top, as opposed to the person with the majority of the votes. By way of example, you have 3 people running for the primary. you could have someone without 51% actually getting the nomination. And that's the way I perceive the bill. Would you agree with that or disagree?
So, Madam Chair, I would say that after the first vote, if you have 3 individuals running in a primary, and if no one got 51%, but let's say someone got 35%, someone got 30%, someone got 20%, there is a chance that in the second ballot, that someone with 30% could end up beating the person who maybe got 35%. But it always takes someone to have 50.1% to win. And what that does is it ensures that the majority of voters as possible vote for the ultimate nominee from that party, which in many cases, including some present statewide victors, brings parties together very quickly after the process.
Madam Chair, follow up. So it's possible that the person on the first ballot who had a majority on the first ballot could wind up not getting the nomination.
Yes, it is possible that the person that had the majority.
Most votes.
I'm sorry. Yes, had most votes.
Majority, but most
yes, sir.
votes.
Yes, sir. It's if you had a 10-person field and someone got 25%, which is a lot in a 10-person field. There's a chance that at the final ballot that person may still not be the victor. It is ultimately what the majority of people come together to circle around to bring forward this nominee. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Delegate Sickles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for council. There's another bill, or maybe the patron too, if he wants to jump in. There's another bill on this topic we're going to hear today. Could they tell us at this point what's the difference between the other bill and this bill? If we would you support the other bill possibly, or council?
The difference is in the type of election and type of offices that would be permitted to choose ranked choice.
So this bill, from my understanding, the other bill is a general election bill. This bill is just a primary bill. This bill has significant support, I understand, in both parties from senior members, and is strictly for primary contests solely at the discretion of the party, not a mandate.
Delegate Van Valkenburg.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just had 2 quick questions to kind of follow up on Delegate Leftwich. Delegate Davis, first question is kind of a yes or no question, right? If you on the first ballot receive 50.1% of the vote, do you win?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then follow up, Madam Chair? Isn't it the case that what ranked choice voting really allows you to do, if no one gets that 50.1% on the first vote, is it incentivizes the candidates to build as broad a coalition as they can. So whereas in our current system, if there's a 5-person field, somebody wins with 35% of the vote, they just win, right? Whereas here, you have to still go out and try to build a broader coalition of voters, because if nobody gets that 50%, well, you need them to vote for you second. So it actually encourages candidates to kind of extend past their kind of strongest constituency.
Yes, sir. Madam Chair, I would say to the delegate that that's exactly what it does, and it results in 2 things. The first thing it results in is more civility in our election process, which I think the voters are dying to have. The second thing it does, and I will tell you that there's a gentleman that now lives not too far from here that believes that the reason why a good chunk why he was victorious was because we were able to unify a party so much because of the outreach that was required with this type of electoral process.
Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask the question to Mr. Nix and Ms. Newell here. Both of you have suggested that you need more time, and I would like to hear a little bit about the training for the educators, the training and setup infrastructure-wise for the offices for elections, so that we can have a better understanding of what's needed in the practical execution end of this, should it pass. Thank you.
Mr. Nix, do you want to bring Mr. Nix? I believe he represents the Electoral Board Association.
Yes, I believe I can speak. I spoke yesterday to a member staff of the Secretary of State for the state of Maine. Maine has a lot of experience with ranked choice voting. And I asked specifically about the training required. They use ES&S software that they have certified for state of Maine that we don't have certified yet. But it takes the burden off of the localities to do that work. The first round of voting is done in the localities. If there isn't a 50% winner, then all of the follow-on work is done in the state capitol using this ES&S software. And the other aspect that's really important is educating voters on how to mark the ballots. I've spent some time on their website. They have an excellent video that goes through the process. I think with the tools they have developed, we could educate voters in Virginia quite easily to make use of the ranked choice voting system. And I think the key to it is having the tabulation software certified here. It does exist, and it could be done here. It would take some months. I mean, the Department of Elections would have to answer the question on how long it would take, but it exists, and we could use it here.
Thank you, Mr. Nix. Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick follow-up.
Quick follow-up, and we actually have the Director of Elections here that can maybe help us come forward and quickly answer that question for us.
That was my follow-up. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Chris Piper from the Department of Elections. The software exists in the existing voting machines. What he's talking about would be like an upgrade, and so that would cost additional funds. Training, the bill has, ranked choice voting has already been in the law. We have regulations that the state board has passed, but no locality so far has signed up to invoke ranked choice voting. This wouldn't take place until the primary of next year. So, I feel confident that we could get those new machines certified should any locality wish to use those, and work on the training for that. So I understand Mr. Nix's concerns, but I feel confident that we could get this ready by the primary of next year.
Delegate Leftwich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Piper, to get the voting machines certified, what would that cost? Whose budget would that come out of? And is the money ready or available now in the current budget?
So, Madam Chair, to respond, localities pay for any upgrades to machines. I don't have the vendors here, so I can't speak to how much it would cost. But certainly upgrades, a retesting would be required, and that can cost. The retesting by the vendor can cost upward of $30,000 to $40,000. Of course, it can be applied across all localities. The upgrade would need to be made by the localities with the vendor. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Piper, the program that is used to implement this, can you tell us a little bit about that?
The program. So, Madam Chair, it's so voting machines can already handle ranked choice voting, the ones that are certified here. To talk about, I think Mr. Nix is referring to upgrading the program so that it makes it easier for the locality to tabulate the results in a quicker manner. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but the program's already in place at the State Board of Elections because we've adopted the regulations. We're ready to move forward. We would have to continue to make changes because we still have Veris, so we would have to make upgrades to Veris. But again, we haven't done that yet because no locality has invoked ranked choice voting. This would require us to be ready for the primary in 2023, which I feel confident we could do so.
Great. Members? Any more questions? We work by motions.
Madam Chair, I'm going to make a motion to gently lay the bill on the table. I have some concerns about the upgrades and the expense. I'm pleased with the way our ticket turned out last time with the diversity of that ticket and the strength that it brought to, I believe, the Commonwealth. But I'm a little concerned about how we get from A to B, and perhaps just putting a little bit of a pause on the bill and looking at that expense. I'd feel a little more comfortable after having done that and knowing what we're pushing down to the localities in order to get ready for this.
And Madam Chair, if I can have last word, or is that okay?
I'll second.
Or is it, we already have a motion? Okay. Okay.
Delegate Waxman?
Aye.
Delegate Converse Fowler?
No.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Davis. Okay, along those same lines, we have House Bill 603 by Delegate Hudson. If you'd like to come forward, we'll go ahead and take that.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. House Bill 603 is another ranked choice voting bill, albeit much smaller, and hopefully it might speak to some of Delegate Leftwich's concerns. This bill builds on the initial local option bill that Delegate Davis and I worked to pass in 2020. That bill was restricted entirely to general elections for city council and county board. And at the time, the localities that were interested in pursuing it had to press pause because of the COVID crisis. There were lots of other things that were consuming the time of our local elected officials. But now that those counties are pursuing adoption, they've decided that they would like to make the switch with all of their local offices at once, so including school boards and local constitutional offices, because that way they could have consistency on the ballot for all of their local offices using ranked choice voting. So this bill would allow them to do that. The localities that have been most energetic on this have been Arlington County, which is the ones who motivated me to pursue this. I should add that as Commissioner Piper said, they will bear the cost of implementing ranked choice voting and have already indicated their willingness to do that. So this is a cost that the localities that want to exercise this option are eager to take up. And I think that this would make it more consistent for those communities. I should say that those are also communities which have typically run ranked choice voting in their primaries already at the party level. And they're often communities that tilt either one way or the other in terms of having a large concentration of Republicans or Democrats. So for them, the option to use ranked choice in a general election is a money saver. It means that they can often skip the costly primary in June and move straight to a general election in November conducted via ranked choice. So there's a fiscal savings and then all of the benefits to the democratic process that Delegate Davis already outlined with no cost to the state.
Thank you, Delegate Hudson. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in support of the bill? Anyone in the audience to speak in opposition? Okay, we'll start bringing in the virtual audience. Okay, Ms. Newell?
Thank you. Just to reiterate, the League of Women Voters supports ranked choice voting as a means of empowering voters, and we support expansion of the local use of ranked choice voting as defined in HB 603. Thank you.
Do we have Bethany Haddock not here? Okay. Mr. Nix, go ahead.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, for an opportunity to speak. My comments on the previous bill apply to Delegate Hudson's bill as well. I wanted to add to my previous comments, though, that I spoke yesterday with Hart Intercivic, who's the manufacturer of our Charlottesville voting equipment, also a couple of dozen other localities in the state. And a colleague in Fairfax County spoke with ES&S yesterday. And as Commissioner Piper said, the voting equipment from those two major suppliers can export the data required for ranked choice voting, the cast vote records, for example, but they can only run the first round. Succeeding rounds need another package of software. Now, ES&S has one already available. Hart Intercivic is developing one for a customer in California, I believe, and that should be ready sometime this year. So we're almost there. Localities can do the first round easily with the equipment and software they already have. It's just doing the succeeding rounds that will require an upgrade to software. And I understand and I agree with Commissioner Piper's view that can be done in time for next year's primary. I don't know about this fall's general election, but certainly for next year, it should be possible. Thank you.
Mr. Nichols. Ms. Nichols.
Yes, thank you. I just want to reiterate how very positive experience that ranked choice voting is, and hopefully we could get this so that people can make the different choices and come together over one. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for all of our public testimony. Do we have any members of the committee that wish to speak? Let's see, Delegate Sickles.
Madam Chair, I have a motion.
Okay.
I've moved to report the bill.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to report
Substitute motion.
House Bill 603. We have a substitute motion.
Madam Chair, for the reasons previously stated about some of the reservations on ranked choice voting and for the who's going to bear the cost, I move that we gently lay the bill on the table.
Second.
Okay, we have a substitute motion that has been properly seconded to gently lay House Bill 603 on the table. We will now vote.
Delegate Converse Fowler
No.
and Delegate Waxman.
Aye.
Okay, everyone's voted. Thank you, Delegate Hudson. It's going to be laid on the table with a vote of 12 to 9.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Everything else that's left in the committee belongs except for House Bill 974. Delegate Simon, I know you've come early this morning. I apologize. Your bill was 974, so it was a little bit down on the list. But we've got 974 before us now.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 974 is brought to you at the request. I had a meeting with the ARC of Northern Virginia, which is an organization in Northern Virginia that represents persons with disabilities, mostly intellectual and developmental disabilities. And one of the things on their wish list was this bill, essentially, which would change the eligibility for curbside voting, which is currently limited in the statute to people having a permanent physical disability, to folks that have any kind of disability. ARC represents a lot of people that have autism spectrum disorders, and frequently that disability it's an invisible disability. You can't see that they have it, but it makes doing something like going into a strange new place, like a polling place where there's a lot of activity, where they have to move through stations in a particular order, can be difficult and challenging and can cause them a lot of anxiety and potential for disruption. So what this bill would do would allow folks like that who don't have any obvious physical disability to take advantage of curbside voting, where they can be there with a family member or caregiver who they're comfortable with, have the registrar come out just like they do with somebody who can't physically walk into the polling place, cast their ballot, and go on with their day. And so I think it'll expand opportunities for those folks to vote in a comfortable, secure setting, and some folks that maybe wouldn't otherwise even bother to go try and vote in a polling place would have this different opportunity. I know I have some people that have been signed up to speak on behalf of the bill, and so I'll leave it to them to expand on some of the reasons for it, but that essentially is the bill.
Thank you, Delegate Simon. Are there any members in the audience that wish to speak in support of the bill? Anyone in opposition? Okay, we'll bring the folks in virtually. Let's see, do we have Ms. Nichols? Okay, Ms. Nichols?
Thank you. I am in opposition to this bill because I am handicapped. It is already hard enough to attempt to get parking spaces and other types of accommodations for what we need. Trying to actually sit there, and no offense, putting that many more people is going to make it where we are blocked out. And that's an issue. You know, if somebody understands people with autism have issues where it is a new place, well, that's why there's absentee voting. And that way, that would take care of that issue. But right now, when you're talking physically handicapped people and seniors, having also worked with and worked on different election days, trying to sit there and get people to come out there, it can take a while. So, you know, you're talking adding that much more to what one person, usually there's only one person that goes out there tries to do, is an issue. So I totally understand. I've had several kids that I have had to work with autistic issues, and they've all been able to overcome those issues with training and the like. Being able to go into a place that is new and different is going to be true for anything, not just voting. It's going to be true whether they have to go to a new classroom or anything else. So I think we really need to
Ms.
take
Nichols.
a step back and look on that.
Ms. Nichols, we've got some other folks that are signed up to speak. I appreciate you coming on today, but can we wrap it up?
I did.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have Rosalia, Lucy Bednall. Can we bring her in?
I'm here, yes. My name is Lucy Bednall. I'm here on behalf of the ARC of Northern Virginia. We're a nonprofit that works with folks with developmental disabilities who have called to tell us how incredibly important the experience of in-person voting is for them, but that they saw they weren't allowed to vote curbside because their disability wasn't enough disability. Even though they may not be able to stand in line, they may not be able to manage the anxiety of being in the room, they may have significant complicating or opportunity to vote and be a part of our democratic process like everybody else, and they're calling me to say they feel disenfranchised and upset. I don't think that's who we are as a Commonwealth, and I would very much look forward to this bill being put in place to bring us in line with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking today. All right, that has wrapped up our testimony online. Members of the committee, do we have any questions? See, I have Delegate Munden King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a comment. I want to thank you as the mom of an 18-year-old who's on the autism spectrum and who was able to vote for the first time. I hope I got her vote. Maybe not.
Secret ballot, you never know.
It's debatable. But I just want to thank you for this effort of inclusivity. And I just, there is no overcoming a developmental disability. It's a daily struggle, and the empowerment of voting is an important part of teaching our kids, our young adults, that they can progress and contribute. So thank you so much for presenting this. And I think that...
Delegate Munden King.
Are there other comments?
No, but we have so many more bills that we have to get through. Do you have a question or?
A motion.
Oh, I had a motion to report.
Okay, we've got other folks that want to
sure.
speak, but okay. Did you have a motion?
I moved to report.
Okay. And we have a motion and a second to report. House Bill 974.
Substitute motion, Madam Chair.
Oh, wow.
I move that we table this legislation.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table House Bill 974.
Delegate Converse Fowler,
Nay.
Delegate Waxman,
Aye.
Okay, everyone has voted. Delegate Simon is going to wait on table 11 to 10. Close the vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We're going to start taking up the bills by members of the committee. Delegate Greenhall, House Bill 55.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and members for allowing me to speak to House Bill 55. This bill actually had a sister bill, Senate Bill 211, which was co-patroned by Senators Spruill and Kiggins. And a friendly amendment was made, which we have requested for this bill.
Madam Chair, the amendment should be posted online, but just in case it's taking a minute, I'll go ahead and report the amendment as well. On line 32, after him, we will strike the remainder of line 32 and then through to 24.2-408 on line 33.
Delegate Greenhall, can you explain your amendment, please?
Yes, to explain the amendment, this bill will require the departments of election to update the rolls with information from vital statistics, and the purpose of the amendment.
Delegate Greenhall, we're explaining the amendment before we adopt it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is simply to give the departments of election, the Department of Election, the registrars, the ability to use information from other sources than simply from vital statistics. So we were contacted and told that many use information from family members, and the way I had the bill written, it would have restricted them to only using information from vital statistics. So we're helping them do their job.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adopt the amendment? All right. So it's been properly seconded to adopt the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. All right. Now the bill is properly before us. Let's talk about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This addresses a very simple problem. Currently in law, the Office of Vital Records is required to monthly make available to the Department of Elections a record of who has died since the last report. So it's monthly, and the Department of Elections is given access but not required to update their rolls. So I see two problems. One being monthly, because now we have extensive election cycles with early voting. So I think, so I'm requesting that the rolls be updated weekly for accuracy while we're voting, and simply to require that the Department of Elections promptly update their records. So this is simply to assist in the early voting and to assure accuracy in our election rolls. So there's no fiscal impact, no additional work, no additional staff. All we're doing is the work that is now required or hopefully being done monthly, that we require that it be done on a weekly basis to assist us in our extended voting sessions for primaries and generals. I do have several speakers. I have Janet Rainey from the Department of Vital Records, Stephanie Isles for the Norfolk Office of Elections, and Chris Piper with the Department of Elections.
Are there any members in the audience that wish to speak in support of the bill? Anyone in opposition? Okay. All right. Well, we'll we'll go ahead and bring folks that are here virtually. All right. Ms. Janet Rainey.
Yes, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Yes. My name is Janet Rainey. I'm the State Registrar for the Office of Vital Records. And the delegate is correct. There is no additional resources needed to change the monthly report to a weekly report. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nichols?
Morning, thank you. Yes, as indicated before, I have worked on various elections, and I will say people have reported to us that people have been dead even up to 7 months, and they weren't able to get the information out to make sure that they were taken off the election. So if this could be done, this might be a better way to try and keep getting that moving. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Isles?
Good morning. I would like to thank the delegate for introducing this bill. We are in support of this measure that would allow us to maintain accurate voter rolls by receiving information quickly to the Department of Elections. Currently, the Department of Elections does receive monthly information, but sometimes it can be quarterly before we receive it to update our voter registration records. So being that they would receive this on a weekly basis, hopefully we will get that information quicker to maintain accurate voter rolls. And so we support this measure. Thank you.
Who is this? I don't know.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I didn't. Can she? Yeah. Could we ask the last person to identify herself or her organization?
That was
Hi.
Ms. Isles. Are you with an organization?
I'm the Director of Elections and General Registrar for the City of Norfolk.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's everyone that we have signed up virtually. So we've got members of the committee that wish to speak. Delegate Williams.
Madam Chair, I move to report.
We have a motion to report and a second. All of those wishing. Huh? Delegate Sickles.
Speaking to the motion, I wish that we would have the Director of the Department of Elections speak to this bill before we vote on it, just to make sure everything is okay.
Certainly.
I mean, this is the person who runs the show.
Certainly.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
It's not a question that has to be decided.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Piper at the Department of Elections. Yeah, monthly, weekly, it doesn't change anything for us.
We have a motion on the table to report, and it has been properly seconded, so we're ready to vote. With amendments.
Should I go?
Yes, you should vote.
Delegate Converse Fowler.
Aye.
Delegate Waxman.
Aye.
Adams. House Bill 1139.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. HB 1399 simply seeks to prevent the exception that allows for candidates to be on both that are federal and state offices to be on the ballot for election and the primary. We saw just in past June up to 6 candidates be on 2 primary ballots. I think this is kind of flies in the face of democracy and what we're trying to represent as public servants and potential elected officials. This results in confusion and sort of undermines the confidence that constituents have in who their potential officers or representatives would be. I did notice, too, that more than $100,000 was deferred from the upper ballot races to their then lower candidate slots. And so I just feel that this exception is just bad for democracy. And so it seems like we should pick an office, run for that office, and not run for two offices on the same ballot.
Thank you, Delegate Adams. Are there members in the audience that wish to speak in support of this bill? In opposition? Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a question for council at the appropriate time.
Okay, we've got people that wish to speak. Yes. Okay. All right, we've got Mr. Vic Nichols. I'm sorry, Ms. Nichols. It shows up on my piece of paper as Vic, so it's Ms. Nichols.
Thank you. Vic is short for Victoria. I would like to reiterate, we have had a situation in our area where there was someone that ran for another office and then almost immediately was trying to campaign for another. And it was quite a bit of opposition to that because the impression that it gave was just a very negative one. So if we could please keep it to one, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that's it for the people that have signed up. Delegate Williams.
I apologize, ma'am. That must have been an old request. I'm sorry.
Delegate Adams.
I have a question for council about the state of the current law. There is a general prohibition, as I understand it, on candidates for multiple offices, but there's this exception that this legislation would attempt to eliminate. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then a question for the patron.
Delegate Adams.
Can you speak to your understanding of the exception and why there is an exception in this case where there's not in other cases?
So I guess in 2000, the language changed. Prior to that, it wasn't explicitly prohibited. And then in 2014, I think there was a special election. So that was important to be allowed to have a special election and a general election. But I think, is that the question? Like, where is it originating? So this doesn't change that. It doesn't take away from that you could have a special election should you need to, but it just takes away from being on a primary or a general ballot at the same time. And should you win both ballots, then the cost automatically will go to the state to have to run another election. So there's just a lot of unintended consequences, I think, to this.
Okay. Council, any more questions? All right. We work by motions. Okay. I have a motion and a second to report House Bill 1139.
Madam Chair, substitute motion
Okay.
to gently lay the bill on the table, and I can speak to that if.
Okay.
Second.
Republicans, they might talk about the election.
We have a substitute motion and that has been properly seconded to lay House Bill 1139 on the table.
Delegate Waxman.
Aye.
Delegate Converse Fowler.
Nay.
Okay. All right. Everyone has voted. The vote. Is it?
I'm trying to change my vote and my machine won't let me, so if the clerk could record me as a no.
Okay. Delegate Sickles will be a no.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Okay, the vote is laid on the table, 11 to 9. Thank you, Delegate App. If the Vice Chair, Delegate O'Quinn will take over, I'm going to go down and present House Bill 195.
What did you say? That'd be okay.
All right, we have House Bill 195 before us. Delegate Ranson.
Thank you, members of the committee and Mr. Chairman. House Bill 195 adds a section to the code that would offer a waiver for polling places. Currently, there are very strict and good guidelines within the code for polling places for the registrars to adhere to. And certainly we want that for security purposes on election day, on any election day. But there have been numerous circumstances for weather-related events, floods, tornadoes, and declared emergencies, particularly in rural areas where we use schools, churches, fire departments for our polling locations that have prevented the registrars and the electoral boards from using those buildings. And currently in the code it says that a polling place must be located within a precinct area. And you can imagine in the rural areas, we have very few places that we can use as buildings that meet the requirements within the code now. So what this bill states is that if there is a flood or a tornado or a fire, or any type of emergency event that may happen, that the registrar or the electoral board could seek a waiver from the State Board of Elections to find a new polling precinct.
All right, thank you, Delegate Ranson. Does any member of the committee have a question for Delegate Ranson? Delegate Williams.
Thank you. I only have one concern, and it's effectively on line 58 of the bill, and it says 57. Elections, a waiver to establish a polling place that does not meet. Now that, in my opinion, reads a single polling place. However, I have seen in other states where that is interpreted a little too liberally, and they've set up multiple polling places as alternatives. So I would like to suggest a friendly amendment to say, to line 57, to state establish a single polling place instead of a polling place.
Okay, so we have that. Is that offered in the form of a line amendment?
If that is acceptable, I'd like to do that. I'm new here, so.
Okay, so Delegate Williams has moved that amendment. Before we get a second and get moving, does council have that amendment?
I do.
Okay, so is there a second to that amendment?
Mr. Chair, question before there's a second.
Delegate Williams, you want to withdraw your motion?
Yes, sir.
Delegate Leftwich.
My question would be is whether the patron would view that as a friendly amendment or not.
I mean, I think that's fine. Okay. Meg, do you see any problem with that?
Madam Chair, with all due deference to Delegate Williams, my concern with adding single there would be the interpretation that this waiver could only be for one single polling place, and if a locality had 2 or 3 precincts that had their polling places that were no longer, able to be used, they would be limited, and how many they could get the waiver for. I don't know if that's a well-founded concern, but that would be my initial concern.
If it would, I would say that we need to leave it the way it is. For example, if a rural locality, and in particular the county that I'm thinking of, they actually had to move their precinct into another polling area. So I think we need to leave it the way it is.
Okay, so we have the bill as presented before us. Delegate Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, this is a question for council. Question for council.
Delegate Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Meg, on line 58, my concern, and I don't think this is the intent of the chairwoman, so I want to be clear on that. But on line 58, where it says suitable, my concern is because it doesn't really say emergency in the language. My concern is that the locality can just find any excuse to say there's no suitable building, and a bad faith actor could just move precincts around. But I also don't know what I don't know in terms of the broader context of the law. So is that, do you see what I'm getting at?
Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Delegate Van Valkenburg, this was the purpose of the waiver requirement, though, is that the department and state board would be, having some guidance and having some restrictions that they would be able to impose if they, or just denial of the waiver if they thought that the reason a building has been considered to be not suitable, if they don't find those valid.
Quick follow-up, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair.
Delegate Van Valkenburg.
But don't they have to say yes to the waiver if the locality presents it to them?
But then they are permitted to impose additional requirements, conditions, anything it deems necessary to make sure that it is accessible and secure.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Vice Chair. This is a question for council as well. I'm just curious how this potentially interacts with the Voter Rights Act, and if there are any changes here that impact the applicability of that.
Madam Chair, Madam Delegate, I don't think so. I certainly am not an expert in the various ways that the Voting Rights Act can be litigated and used to challenge different things. And this was really a situation in which there is something that has happened and it's not a suitable building. The polling place is still going to be available. It just could be further than 1 mile outside of a precinct boundary.
Okay. Thank you.
Delegate Reed.
Yes, Mr. Chair. A question for the patron.
Delegate Reed.
Yeah, thank you. So what I was curious about, and I think it's kind of been brought up a little bit, but who determines in the new location whether or not it's a suitable building? Because I am also concerned, as Delegate Van Valkenburg was talking about a bad faith actor and the possibility that this could be used to actually make it more difficult for someone to vote. So who determines that the new location is a suitable building?
The State Board of Elections. And if you go to lines 60 and 61, the local registrar would have to make sure that we are ensuring accessibility and security of the polling place. So when you go up to the waiver and you go to the State Board of Elections, they are making sure of that.
Delegate Converse Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment?
Delegate Converse Fowler.
Speaking of the bill, I just wanted to thank you. There was a tornado in the 21st district several years ago, and it was an entire church was demolished. And there wasn't a voting location there, but there was in the church down the street. So it brought a lot of this to my attention, where we need to give that flexibility. And then really it comes down to the state board. So I just wanted to thank the patron, and I support this bill. And at the appropriate time, I have a motion.
Delegate Leftwich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So not a question, but a comment.
Delegate Leftwich.
So I like this bill, and I'll say why. And in addition to what Delegate Converse Fowler said, I know that the patron had a tornado in her district at one time. In fact, a number of people on this dais visited her district with her and helped her clean up some of those areas. And it was devastating. It's not a matter of whether there is a place that's not convenient. Sometimes it's a matter of a place not being available at all. And I would suggest that would be very consistent with the Voter Rights Act to give people a place to go and pull a lever to vote for their candidate.
Delegate Kriesik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, Delegate and the last two delegates, I think, answered my question. I was wondering what would happen now without this legislation, and I think you've addressed that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Does anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of this bill? Anyone in the audience wish to speak against the bill? All right, we will move to the virtual room. We have Allison Robbins. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allison Robbins. I'm the Director of Elections and General Registrar for the County of Wise, and I'm with the Voter Registrars Association. We'd like to thank the Chairwoman for bringing this legislation forth, and we encourage the committee to support the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robbins. All right, any further questions of the patron? Committee operates by motion.
Second.
There's been a motion to report, properly seconded. Members wishing to vote, vote on the electronic voting board.
Delegate Waxman.
Aye.
And Delegate Converse-Fowler.
Aye.
Delegate Ranson, you wish to have your vote recorded?
I'm an aye.
Shocking. Clerk will close the roll.
Thank the members of the committee.
House Bill 195 reports 20-0.
Thank you. That completes our docket in our first full meeting of privileges and elections. Thank you all for your great work today.
We're done? Oh, man.